Well, I'm delighted to be joined by Lightridge High School head football coach Bobby Eavenson Jr. in your 5th season with this program. How does the team compare to what your expectations were coming into the season?
In terms of a record, that's a difficult question to answer, just because, you know, we don't ever really try to have like a predetermined notion of, hey, we should win this many games, or this is what we expect from a wins and losses perspective, or even on a game-to-game level, this is how many yards we need to run for, this is how many yards we need to throw for. And then it can go the other way, like, hey, we want to win 7 games, you know, we want to win the district. So, okay, well, if you lose 2 district games, what are you going to do now? So from that perspective, it's hard to answer from the record. But in terms of what I've expected from our players and from our coaches, it's gone almost exactly how I've expected. You know, we're replacing a lot of really good football players. We were very senior heavy last year. I also don't expect these kids to ever take any excuses. I don't expect them to look for the easy way out. I don't expect them to have I don't expect them to expect sympathy from anyone just because we're playing a bunch of sophomores and stuff like that. Because the truth is, nobody cares. At the end of the day, no one cares if you won or lost. No one cares how many sophomores or juniors or seniors you were playing. It's a group that's been really fun to coach. They've let us coach them and coach them hard at times. The way that they've competed and the way that our coaching staff has prepared has been, I've had high expectations for that, and those expectations so far have proven to be very reasonable expectations.
Well, Coach, as I mentioned, this is a relatively new program, and so I was curious about how this group compares to that first group that you had, and maybe there's a lot of similarities given how young this year's group is.
Yeah, we are actually in year 6, and yes, this is, you know, us coaches talked about it, and we said this is as inexperienced as we've ever been since probably the 2nd year of the program. You know, but you go back and you look at that first year, and you're playing varsity football, and you've got 7 juniors and no seniors. I was fortunate enough to open Riverside as a defensive coordinator, and it was the same thing there. It was a great group of kids, but you know that you've got an uphill battle for a couple of years.
Well, and speaking of the numbers growth, I mean, it's been an interesting journey for you all, because I've heard you talk about how during that first COVID season you had 44 players, and then you add in 36 first-year players. Mm-hmm. And that's a big challenge. How have those growing numbers really changed what you're doing here? I'm sure that brings challenges, there's benefits, there's all types of things you have to work around.
Absolutely. Obviously there are benefits. Every single high school football coach that I've ever talked to, it's, you know, the conversation in the offseason with some of my best friends are head coaches and assistant coaches in this area, and then some in other areas, but it's always, hey, what are your numbers? What are your numbers in the weight room? How many freshmen do you have? You know, how many guys do you guys have in the program and stuff like that? That's always the question. You want the numbers to be higher than lower, because around here you want to play 3 levels. You want to play a freshman game, a JV game, and a varsity game every week. And we have been able to actually answer that bell, I think, since year 3. We've been able to field all 3 levels. We've never had to cancel any games, which for us is such a big deal, because now you're getting more kids playing high school football. That's something that's been really good for us, and it's really helped our player development. And when you get good numbers, and now all of a sudden the player development's going up, well, now you can hit on a lot more players, so to speak. But does it bring challenges? Yeah, it does. You know, we run a little bit of a hard program. You know, we go in the morning at 6:30 a.m. twice a week, because we start at 9:30. To make the best use of the time, we go early. We go early on Mondays, we go early on Thursdays. I shut the weight room door for attendance at 6:30. If you're here at 6:31, then we need to have a conversation about why it's 6:31 and why it's not 6:25.
Coach, there's so much I want to follow up on what you just said. And the first place that I'll go is, I've heard you talk before about the importance of consistency and showing up 6 days a week. Other than having kids there at 6:30 in the morning on the dot, or before in the locker room, how do you instill that in the culture here of still a program that's growing and finding its way?
It's a really good question. I think that it starts with modeling it. Our coaches get here early, our coaches stay late. You know, when the players come in, they're not wondering where coaches are. Coaches are here. So I think that when you're asking a lot of players, I think that when they see coaches' cars out front, And they're like, okay, well, they're not asking us to be here at 6:30 and then coaches are showing up at 6:45. It ain't like that. Nope, I've been here since about 5. I may have gotten my workout in. I'm printing schedules and putting them together and making sure that the film rooms are open and making sure that the gates are open and stuff like that. There's people that ask things of other people and then they don't do it. But it's not how our program operates. It's not how this building operates, which is one of the many reasons I love coaching here so much. Same with Jason Trion and Brian Schmidt, our athletic administration. They're not asking us to put in time and then they're just nowhere to be found. What I think is really important for us is I will, at least once a week, I will pause the film and I will tell them something that I did that was wrong on tape. So I think that when kids see that adults are saying, hey, look, I'm going to point out your imperfections, but let's also talk about mine. Okay, so that we're all on the same page here.
Coach, I absolutely love that. I could not agree with you more that it is important for young people to see that adults make mistakes, they take ownership, and they look to grow. And I'm really not surprised to hear you talk about philosophies like that and teaching moments and helping to mold and shape these players that are on your team. I know you've been doing this for a long time. You came up in this coaching community in Northern Virginia, which is a tremendous group of individuals leading the talent here. I know you've had outstanding mentors. West Springfield, Coach Bill Renner comes to mind. What philosophies have you taken from those experiences, in addition to what you just talked about, that help shape and mold your program now?
There is a lot that I learned at West Springfield. I was there for 7 years. I was with Coach Renner for 5. And I mean, it would be really hard for me to put into words what I owe Bill Renner. I mean, he took a chance on a 20-year-old mechanic, who was, working early and then hustling and getting to practice and stuff like that. He took a chance on me when he didn't have to. And so did that whole coaching staff. But the things that I learned, I really learned how to coach from them, how to coach football. But I mean, if it wasn't for, it's Bill Renner and it's my dad that I would say that I probably owe my start to coaching in. Teaching and coaching is kind of the family business, so I come by it honestly. But I mean, the core of our pass game, it goes back to the principles from Bill at West Springfield. So a lot of, and one of Bill's things were, well, if we're a little outsized and if the ball moves faster than the feet, then let's put the ball in the air. We talk about technique, effort, and determination, TED, T.E.D. That was one of Bill's big things at West Springfield. I blatantly stole it from him. If it's proprietary, then I apologize to Bill and I probably owe him a lot of money. But I've just been around so many good people who are also really good football minds. If I were to tell you the number one thing from my coaching career, it's just being around good people, and a lot of that's luck, But I mean, Matt Robinson teaches in the building, and he's a great guy. Does a great job with our defensive line. Lewis Quorum and Thomas Jarman, they do our freshmen, and they're also varsity assistant guys. They do a great job.
Technique, effort, determination. I'm stealing it too. And after people see this interview, there's going to be a lot of people modeling that. But I love to hear that. I love to hear the focus on the mental part of the game, because it's so important in this day and age. I mean, Coach, there's so much involved in what you do. It's the X's and O's. It's being a mentor. It's being the person that your players need you to be in that moment. And was very happy to see that you got recognized as the Commander's Coach of the Week a while back. And I know you're not in this for the individual accolades, but it's an important recognition for you. It's an important recognition for this program. Can you talk about what that means for Lightridge football?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, I enjoy that because of the program. Anything that looks good and maybe my name is attached to it, to me that says a lot about our players first and foremost, because they're the ones on the field. And if we're not doing the right things on the field, if the players aren't doing their jobs, then none of it's going to happen. So to me, it just highlights the program. That's one of those things that I really hope our players see that, and I really hope that they understand that no one around here wins awards if it's not for what the players do. It's really not. And any coach awards that I get, to me, it's a coaching staff award. And any coaching staff award, again, it's because your players played well, because they don't give coaches awards to teams with bad players, teams that don't win games, and teams that don't compete. It just doesn't happen.
Well, Coach, I think about this because, and I'm guilty of this too, of coming to games and sometimes forgetting that these are teenagers out on the field. There's a lot of pressure. What are some of the things that you all focus on to get players prepared for those moments? Because again, it's not just the technical aspects, it's not just the plays and the schemes and all of that, but it's being able to handle those moments that require so much mental toughness with so much pressure, everyone looking at you from the stands.
Absolutely. It's one of the many things that I've taken from Bill Renner, and I think Jason Dawson was one of the best at this too, of preparing kids for how to handle all the pressures and stuff that comes with it. I mean, even since I've started coaching, the differences in what these kids go through is absurd. It's really building relationships with kids. Again, it's kind of a coach speak, a teach speak, but it's also very true. There has to be an understanding. You have to have the conversation and being like, yeah, man, I was 16, like I get it. So it's just, I think there has to be a level of understanding, and I think that the kids, they have to know that they can come to you with more than just football. And I think that when they have enough adults in the building that they trust giving them the same message, again, I think that helps to culture your program. That helps our kids do the right things in the buildings and then in the community, and that translate on the field. To my opinion, that translates on the field.
Coach, we've talked a lot about the past. We've talked a little bit about where you are now. I want to look a little bit into the future, and it's very exciting because you are a younger team. I've heard coaches say the best thing about freshmen, they become sophomores, right? So 2 to 3 years down the road, where are you wanting this team, this program to be, and how do you get there?
Well, in terms of how do we get there, in a word, it's consistency, which you already mentioned. We have the potential to be very good here in a couple years. We've had, last year our freshman team was really good. So then now what that becomes is you've got to make sure that you keep those kids around. Player retention then becomes paramount, player development and player retention. That's the biggest thing for us, is how can we retain kids and how can we add size? How can we get them faster? How can we get them better with change of direction? How can we get them caught up on our scheme, and so on and so forth? How can we develop these players so that they can do what we ask our guys to do on Friday nights? And then as those players develop, now we look at what do we ask our kids to do on Friday nights, and does that fit the players that we have? But it's the development and it's the retention. And I think that if we can be really good in that area, then I feel really good about where we could be here in a year or two.
Coach, I've heard you give a lot of interviews. I've heard you say a lot of things about Lightridge, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there one thing that people maybe don't know that they should know? It can be about this team, it can be about the future, but what's that thing that comes to mind, maybe the best kept secret?
I don't know if we have a lot of secrets. I think a lot of people know who we are on offense. I think a lot of people know who we are on defense.
Well, Coach, I love that answer. I love that there really aren't any secrets. We are who we are. Everyone knows who we are. But what I hear you saying is there is nowhere better to be on a Friday night than at a Lightridge football game. There's intensity, there's drama, there's hard work, and it is certainly worth the price of admission. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you the absolute best of luck for the remainder of the season.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.